Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and today I'm going to be talking about the Bitcoin power law. We're also, because it's a weekend, going to be doing a deep dive TA with all the live positions and how I'm looking to position as a pro trader going into next week with full transparency on YouTube as always. So make sure you stick around to the end of this video because I have had to put an additional count on Bitcoin. I think I prematurely took off the questionable count, so I've added that back and I'm going to show you exactly why. So make sure you at least see that. Before we get into the charts and all the live positions and stuff, I'm going to take a detour via what is known as the Bitcoin power law. A lot of you guys have put me onto this. I've spent some time looking into it and it's pretty interesting. So we're going to go over that today. The thing I find most interesting about the power law is that it answers a bunch of these questions that I get asked all the time. Is it too late to buy Bitcoin? Okay, is 70k expensive? Is there even a lot of upside left in Bitcoin? Are we actually considered early if we're buying at 70k? And the short answer is no, it is not too late to buy Bitcoin. 70k is actually cheap and there is plenty of upside left in Bitcoin. Now, if you disagree with that, I completely understand, but this is largely to do with the fact the human brain is not suited to comprehend exponential curves. And that is where the power law comes in. It makes this easy for a brain that is ill-equipped to compute the types of growth left in Bitcoin. First, I think it is really important to point out that our human brains are very capable, right? But there are certain things that they are just not hardwired to understand, okay? Now, that doesn't mean they can't be trained, reprogrammed. As with anything, the more time you spend, the more repetitions you get, the more intuitive it becomes. But if I use a couple of things as an example, okay? If I ask you the question, a simple question, can you tell me what the fourth dimension looks like, okay? Most of you, and actually I say that with hesitancy because there are some very high-level thinkers and very intelligent people in this community. This is not a typical YouTube channel. But if you were to ask a question to a normie out in the wild, okay, can you tell me what the fourth dimension looks like? They will often give you a very common wrong answer, and that is that the fourth dimension is time. Okay, now this is not to poke fun at anyone that doesn't know how the higher spatial dimensions or higher geometries work. This is simply to illustrate a point that the human brain really isn't designed to think and comprehend certain things intuitively. The reason time is not the fourth dimension is because time exists in all dimension, okay? We live in the third dimension. We have time in our dimension. The fourth dimension is to the third dimension what the third dimension is to the second dimension. So if I told you to think about a third dimensional object, say a cube, you'll probably have no problem comprehending and thinking and picturing a dice or a cube, right? Something like that. Then if I said to you, can you comprehend what a fourth dimensional cube looks like? The answer is probably no. For anyone wondering, a fourth dimensional cube looks like this. It's known as a tesseract and it is essentially a cube within a cube. Now, this is far beyond the remit of a finance channel, admittedly. But again, I think it's important to point out, okay, if you have never spent any time with higher spatial geometries, with fourth dimensional shapes, then you will not have been able to imagine a tesseract, okay? Like I said, you would have probably given the common wrong answer, which is that time is the fourth dimension, as if time does not exist in all dimensions. A few years ago, Mrs. Camel bought me a Klein bottle. This is a fourth dimensional shape that does not belong in this realm. So if anyone's interested in this stuff, there's a good place to start, okay? Go and look at tesseracts, go and look at Klein bottles, and you'll see, initially it really hurts your brain to think about, but once you spend some time there, you will soon be able to comprehend these things a lot better. And the absolute same is true of exponential curves. The human brain is really not well designed to organically, or I should say intuitively, compute exponential curves. And to illustrate this point, before we move into the Bitcoin power law, here is a very, very nice example, okay? This here is Wembley Stadium. Now, if I was to say to you that we're going to try to fill this thing up one drop at a time, in minute one, we're going to add one drop of water to this stadium. In minute 2, we're going to double that to 2 drops. In minute 3, we're going to add 4 drops. In minute 4, 8 drops, and so on. So every 1 minute, we are going to double the amount of drops of water we add to this. The question is, how long do you think it takes to fill Wembley Stadium with water using this method? So I'll give you just a few moments to think about this, okay, and illustrate how bad the human brain is at comprehending exponential growth. The answer is 44 minutes. At 44 minutes, this stadium would be overflowing. And to further illustrate this point, if I was to ask you the question, how full, roughly speaking, in percentage terms, is it at 42 minutes? The answer, quite surprisingly, is 25% full. Okay, it is 75% empty at the 42-minute mark. And of course, because we double the amount, by minute 43, we are at 50% full. And by minute 44, we have filled Wembley Stadium with water using this exponential function. So if you're sat there scratching your head, okay, it's not because you're stupid. It is literally just because our brains are really not designed to be able to comprehend exponential growth any more than they are designed to be able to comprehend 4 or 5 or 6 dimensional shapes. For those of you that are interested in the maths, okay, you can pause your screen, take a good look at this, and I'll scroll down a little bit more so you can see the rest of the page. Similarly, with the common wrong answer for the 4th dimension, as it pertains to exponential curves and Bitcoin, there's a common wrong answer for Bitcoin here. Okay, the common wrong answer is that it is indeed too late to buy Bitcoin. 70k Bitcoin really is expensive, and that there's not a lot of upside left in Bitcoin, which is why we need to focus on altcoins. To say these sorts of things is to simply not understand exponential curves, just as to say that the 4th dimension is time demonstrates a lack of understanding of higher spatial geometries. And so all of this leads me very nicely into the Bitcoin power law. The Bitcoin power law was created by an astrophysicist, somebody that deals with logarithms and exponential functions all the time, since what they look at are things out in space that are really, really big. When you're dealing with really large or really small numbers, you have to have logarithmic scales because the linear scales just don't work. So, because this astrophysicist spent so much time looking at really big things and using logarithms, by turning his attention to Bitcoin, this was far more intuitive to astrophysicists than it is to me or you, somebody that has not spent a lot of time using logarithms, exponential functions. So the key take home here is the price in time is growing to the 6th power. We have addresses growing to the 2nd power. We have the address power law in time to the 3rd power. But what you'll notice is when we start to use these logarithmic scales, everything is up and to the right and quite smooth. We also see that as Bitcoin price goes up, mining becomes more profitable. This draws more capital into mining. This capital is looked at as the intrinsic value of the network. And with this intrinsic value go up, the price goes up further. We have a model here that predicts around $200,000 Bitcoin, followed by a bear market low of around 60k. And so by using the logarithmic scale, we get a smooth, straight line. And you can see that the Bitcoin price just roughly chops this line. Of course, that doesn't quite yet answer the question. Okay, can this continue? Is this not going to, at some point, roll over? Is this not going to, at some point, break? Are we not going to see diminishing returns and that 5.3 rule? Well, actually, according to the Bitcoin power law, we're likely not going to see that. We've got log time at the bottom and log price at the top. And what do you notice? Okay, this is a straight line up and to the right. So instead of having these rainbow charts that curve like this, okay, and eventually tell us to expect nominal or no growth in the price of Bitcoin, by plotting it against log time, we get a straight linear line up and to the right. What's most interesting about this is that the price power law in time is growing at a power of 6. So what that tells us is, from the Genesis block to today, around 15 years, Bitcoin has grown at that rate. And if we ask the question, well, what happens in the next 15 years? The answer is, we should expect the same rate of growth. We should expect Bitcoin to continue to grow to the power of 6. Meaning we should expect, if we walk 15 years out into the future, to see 2 to the 6 times the price, or said another way, a 64x from where we are. And that puts us at around $4.5 million by 2039, just 15 years from today. Will there be boom bust cycles along the way? Yes, of course there will. Don't let anyone convince you that we're never going to have a bear market, that the 4-year cycle is going to break, or any of that stuff, okay? You can see we are still going to be doing this. By the way, if anyone thinks that, oh, look, the cycles are shortening in length, that's not the case, okay? That is because this is log time. With all that said, going back here, is it too late to buy Bitcoin? Well, not according to the power law. According to the power law, we have the same level of growth over the next 15 years that we have seen since the Genesis block. So therefore, is 70k expensive? No, 70k is not expensive when we are targeting $4.5 million over the next 15 years. And therefore, is there a lot of upside left for Bitcoin? Well, according to the power law, yes, there is. There is another 64x over the next decade and a half for Bitcoin. So once again, we find ourselves in this situation where people are zooming in, they're looking at this right here, they're trading this thing on leverage, and they're saying, oh no, oh no, oh no, Bitcoin is crashing, triple top. And as you can see, okay, by zooming out, by using this power law, by understanding our brains are ill-equipped to deal with exponential growth, we can only come to the conclusion that nobody is bullish enough. So since we're at Bitcoin, I might as well start with Bitcoin. We're still pushing these two positions, okay? We're still, believe it or not, looking to add a third position here. Now, the eagle-eyed viewers will notice that I have added back in this earlier count. Now, the reason I was inclined to accept the right-hand count, okay, the later two arrows, the reason I like this count more is, although this wasn't the lowest low, the crypto-related stocks confirm this as a low. So if I hop into the crypto-related stocks, we absolutely nailed this call in the member section. When we were here, okay, Bitcoin made that initial low, the lower low, and then I said what we should expect is a counter trend bounce, a rollover to undercut that low, and then a breakout to confirm that is indeed the cycle low. And this is what we did in the member section, right? We got long on a bunch of these crypto stocks, and you know the rest is history. And so because of this reason, I said that, look, what we had was a failed cycle, meaning we closed the daily candle below the prior cycle low. That told us to expect a counter trend bounce followed by a rollover to make one final low into a cycle low, and then we could go from there. I also didn't like to accept this count at the time because it's only something like day 42. If I measure from this cycle low here and drag it out, you can see that would have been a day 43-ish cycle low, far too early for a 60-day cycle low plus or minus 10%, which of course is 6 days. So I didn't like how early this low was. I also thought to myself, well, the miners and the crypto stocks confirm this is the low. This seems to be a nuance unique to Bitcoin, that it does these fake out failed cycles. The channel OGs would have seen a few of these by now. And so I said, you know, we won't be able to tell until later in the cycle, but I lean on a balance of probabilities that this count here and this one at the right-hand side due around the 7th of April will end up being the correct one. Then when we got this half cycle low shakeout, okay, measuring from here to that flush out, you can see right in that timing window, 27, okay, that's close enough to 30 to count it as a half cycle low. And so from there, I was thinking, well, okay, we've got the half cycle low. It means we can scratch this earlier count off, accept the later count, and that tells me to expect a 60-day cycle low somewhere in the neighborhood of the 7th of April for Bitcoin. But yesterday, I realized something, okay? If we take the early count, which I don't like because of the reasons I said, you know, it's early and the crypto stocks didn't confirm it as the low. But if we measure from here to here, we actually get a perfect day 30, 31, half cycle low, okay? And if that's the case, then it tells us that we are almost at the point where we should start to expect that next 60-day cycle low to show up, perhaps as early as around Saturday the 23rd of March. This could well be the top of this 60-day cycle, and thus we could be about to put in an early daily cycle low. So what would that look like from back here? Well, that would mean that we saw a day 51 top. We're currently on day 53, which tells me that any day now we could be looking for some kind of swing, some kind of reversal, a 60-day cycle low, and that we might see the price do something more like this, followed by a reversal, confirmed, of course, by a trendline breakout. And if that's the case, then I think I have to respect that as a long. I think I have to add a position here, and we'll have to be looking at the crypto-related stocks to see if they confirm that that indeed was the correct count, and thus we would remove this later count. So it is an added layer of complexity at this current moment in time. But the good news is, okay, if we bounce out of here and keep going higher, right, if this is indeed going to be that Dalia Lama pattern again I was talking about, seeing something more like this into a cycle low, then we have our answer, right? This early account is, in fact, incorrect. We were right all along, and we'll move on from there. However, if what we see now is some kind of V plunge, something like this, into a cycle low and a strong, sharp push off out of there, then I will have to respect that. We'll have to assume that this count at the right-hand side is actually incorrect, and thus we'll go to accepting this early account here and here. So whilst there is an added layer of complexity, I actually kind of am championing this. This is kind of what I want to see. I don't think it's the most likely, but it would be nice because the silver lining here is that we're almost in that timing window where we're going to see a bounce and a run. Then we'd have a full 60-day cycle ahead of us. It also means that these crypto-related stocks are probably working on their pullback right now. We're probably going to get some kind of cycle low earlier than I've got it marked here, somewhere closer to here. And then we are going to get breakouts and another leg higher in all of these crypto stocks. But some of these ones like Riot, we left a whole heap of gaps behind, right? Here, 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 and here. And we've come back and backfilled them. The same is true if I click into Marathon. We left, gaps here, we left gaps here, and now we've come back and filled all of them, right? We've come back and filled all of these gaps right in time potentially to see Bitcoin make a cycle low over the next couple of sessions and then come tearing out of here. And if it does, I would largely expect these miners to come tearing out of here as well. I also think in terms of sentiment, this would be an absolutely fantastic setup, because all I have seen of late, and I've been talking about this nearly every day on the channel, is people that bought the mining stocks, they're really suffering. Most people aren't sat in a position like we are, right? The Camel Crew, and this is not a flex, this is just the objective reality. We're sat in down here and from down here, right? If this thing pulls back all the way to, 160, I don't care. I'm still sat in profit, right? Do you see what I mean? So people that got in at the right time don't care. But if you look on Twitter, it's Armageddon at the moment. Everyone is really, really upset. Everyone's like throwing in the towel. People are capitulating. People have gone in over leverage. People are posting screenshots of options that are worth absolutely zero after being worth an absolute fortune just weeks ago. And it seems to me like retail bought the top. We've now got to flush them out. And perhaps, given that, like I said, all of these gaps have been backfilled now, okay, we're running out of excuses to not find a bottom right here. This should be the place, right? We're into support. We're into horizontal support. We've backfilled all the gaps. So all of this is kind of telling me the miners want to find a bottom sooner rather than later. And thus, I do wonder if what we're going to see is something more like this out of Bitcoin. And thus, we'll end up scratching the right-hand count off. So, like I said, add a layer of complexity. We're going to take it one day at a time. I'm sure we're going to figure it out, and we're going to have our answer pretty soon. And like I said, I almost kind of want to see the early account confirmed, because if we do get that pullback and a bounce out of here, then it tells me we can get long, and we can expect to see these miners and crypto stocks start to really do super performance into that final leg higher. So exciting times, right? As ever, one day at a time is the only way to take it. But I'm liking what I'm seeing. We're going to get our answer very, very shortly. We're going to know for sure. Like I said, to be really clear, if we pull back into here and see something like this, then that is the count I'm going to accept. And if we do indeed Dalai Lama our way out of here and then form a cycle low later, we'll of course scratch off the left-hand count, the earlier count, and continue to accept the right one. So pretty wild times, right? Exciting. And again, it shows the importance of being a trader. It shows the importance to be fluid and not married to any one bias. I see a lot of people say, well, Camel, you just said it could go up or down or sideways. Yeah, I did, right? But that's what trading is, okay? I'm going to let the market tell me which way it's going, and then I'm going to hop on. DXY, still catching a little counter trend bounce, okay? But nothing moves in straight lines. The trend is still down, still targeting that 3-year cycle low. The fact gold is nearing its daily cycle low tells me that we're going to get a breakout this week and a swing somewhere in this neighborhood, right? Somewhere around the 19th, which is Tuesday. So expecting to see this thing continue to move higher, possibly going to be adding some minor positions. Notice how the junior miners right here thinking about breaking out, right? So perhaps there's a long opportunity coming somewhere around this neighborhood this week for the junior miners. Silver is also thinking about breaking out and potentially moving higher. Again, there could be a silver trade here, or perhaps we could be playing this by the miners. I will probably play this by the silver junior miners, to be honest. This is a much nicer setup. I think it will look something like this. So need to wait to see gold find its cycle low and break out of that downward sloping white resistance line, right? Let me zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about. So something like this, yeah? Looking for a cycle low, looking for a breakout of the downward sloping white resistance line. And then I think it will be time to add some extra exposure to go back to full exposure with a 6% sector risk for the precious metals and see what the market will give. The stock market starting to look a little bit more like we might be thinking about rolling over, right? We might be thinking about putting in a left translated daily cycle and thus be on our way to that next daily and weekly cycle. The NASDAQ as well, look, printing lower lows. So it's an early warning sign. Absolutely would not surprise me if we saw a massive green candle on Monday, but that is not what the cycles are telling us. The cycles are telling us we should be expecting a downtrend into that daily and weekly cycle low in around 2 to 3 weeks time. And the Dow Jones as well, look, breakout, retest, so far hard retest below that trend line in white. So once again, we have an early warning sign, okay? Does not preclude a move higher out of here. But for now, it is an early warning sign that we failed the breakout at least into the close on Friday. So it tells us to keep an open mind about potentially seeing a little bit of weakness walking forward. A piece of alpha I was been meaning to mention to you guys, okay, is the April and October lows. So if you don't know about this, you can simply pull up a chart, okay, look around October and look around April. And typically what you'll find is a major set of lows occur in April and in October, plus or minus a month. But if you always keep that in the back of your mind, going into April-ish, we should expect to see some major lows form, and going into October-ish, we should expect to see some major lows form. Then that is, as a guide, a pretty good rule of thumb to have. It's a pretty good piece of context to keep in the back of your mind. And I really suspect that this time is no different. I suspect we do get an April set of lows. That's what the weekly cycle lows are telling us. And out of that becomes a very nice opportunity to buy. And it also tells us to keep an open mind about not seeing another set of major lows until October-ish. So pull up an S&P chart, okay, go back in time, see this for yourself. If you keep April and October in the back of your mind, you will notice that an awful lot of major lows, there's the C19 plunge, okay, occur right around April or right around October. So go and do that as a piece of homework. Here's the Russell 2K clinging on, isn't it? Clinging on to its range break. So all the while it can hold this kind of blue box zone. I think we can keep pushing along. But again, it's firing early warning signs by losing this upward sloping red support line. Crypto-related stocks, we're still kind of pushing them, right? Like I was saying a minute ago, we should probably be open to seeing an early cycle low and some breakouts coming. And we should also be open to seeing that later cycle low play out. So we're going to get to figure out which one that is this week, I would have thought. For now, though, you know, we gap down below the trend line, but close back above it. So we can keep pushing this along, no problem. If we go to MicroStrategy, same deal, right? Magical blue trend line, keeping us in. Riot, we are looking for a position. We've backfilled all these gaps. We're holding support, like I said. I think we can get back in probably in the not too distant future. And I think we could possibly get a very, very large move out of Riot. Similarly for Marathon, right? We're kind of holding this range break. We kind of closed below it and then have just about popped back above into the middle of it, still kind of holding this blue support line, kind of not. So it's an early warning sign, but the good news is we filled all these gaps. So since we filled the gaps, probably tells us that we're running out of excuses not to find a bottom here, particularly if Bitcoin is about to find a cycle low. And if that's the case, then I'll be looking for breakouts, perhaps something in the form of this. That's quite steep. I would perhaps like it to be less steep than that, but we'll probably be able to find a nice entry in the not too distant future. We've been patiently waiting. That's been the right call so far. So long as this thing can catch a bounce and we can get in on a second position and move the stop up, then we'll be able to have double the exposure without taking any additional risk going into the next leg higher. So overall, I'm liking what I'm seeing, right? I'm liking what I'm seeing. I think we can go higher, but I do think we've got to find some cycle lows first. The nice thing is I think we're going to get our answer this week. Like I said, there's going to be opportunities coming up because we're going to be able to add to some miners. We're going to be able to add to the gold miners as well, probably, and get some additional precious metal exposure. And of course, Bitcoin might just be a couple of days away from confirming that early account is correct. And thus, we probably got a full 60-day upside cycle ahead to price discovery to new all-time highs. And if that's the case, then there'll be plenty of crypto-related equities and Bitcoin positions for me to, again, increase my exposure. If you're a level 3 member, I'm going to be doing a deep dive on all those crypto stocks. And again, I know some people are stressing them, not so much in the member section, but I know people on Twitter are having meltdowns about these crypto-related stocks. But to me, that's really good. We've got a massive wall of worry to climb. We've got a bunch of people puking out and capitulating. And it speaks to buying when there's fear, right? Buying when there's blood on the streets or whatever the expression is, particularly with the context of those cycles for Bitcoin. I think we do have an edge. So I'm going to be looking to add more crypto-related stocks. And if I'm right about Bitcoin breaking out to new all-time highs and entering price discovery, then fireworks should be just around the corner. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend. I hope you're doing well in life. And until next time, take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.